Hello everybody and welcome back. Okay, so I don't normally think this when I'm saying this, but I do think this when I am editing. Well, every time I'm editing and I hear myself say, hello everybody, all I can think of is Roy from the IT crowd.
Hey everybody, look at me!
And like I said, I don't normally think that when I'm saying it in the video, but I did this time, and so I just wanted to share that with you. And I'm sure now that I've shared that, you guys will all be like, yeah, thanks. That's all we can think of too. Um, so welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing recent reads, non-magical edition. So the last video was my recent reads that were for the Owl's readathon. So these are the ones that I've read recently that weren't a part of that readathon. These are just some things that I've read recently. Apparently most of them were done on audiobook because I literally only have 2 hard copies. So, yeah. Okay, the first book is The Bear and the Nightingale. This is by Catherine Arden, and it's the first of the Winter Night trilogy. And I'll show you... I'll show you what the cover looks like. Here. This book... I ended up really liking it. I gave it a 4 stars, I think. Yes, I gave it 4 stars, but it took me a really long time to get into it. I got the paperback from the library and renewed it and ended up having to, excuse me, give it back because I literally couldn't renew it anymore. And then I think I checked it out again and finished it then. So it took me like 3 months to finish reading this book, 4 months, something like that. So this book is it's set in, old time Russia. I'm not even sure like how old time because they're not specific. Like St. Petersburg exists, but it's just a bunch of like wooden structures. Everyone's using like carts and wagons. Like there's no electricity, there's no technology. So, old time Russia, maybe medieval, maybe older, I'm not sure. And it has to do with, it deals with, apparently, I don't know anything about this in reality, so I can't speak to the validity of this, but apparently it deals with Russian mythology. And that was cool because I, as I just stated, know nothing about Russian mythology. Russian mythology. Okay, let's try that again. As I just said, I don't know anything about Russian mythology. That's really hard to say. So yeah, it was really, really cool to have something that wasn't necessarily set in Europe. I mean, I guess St. Petersburg is technically in Europe, I think, not in the Asian part of Russia. Oh, geez. I think so. I think that's right. Don't come at me if I'm wrong. I know I looked this up not that long ago because somebody was talking about Russians being Europeans, and I was like, isn't like 95% of Russia in Asia? And that is accurate, but it's all like mostly the uninhabited parts, and like all of the major cities and stuff for the most part are in the European part. So I feel fairly confident that St. Petersburg is in Europe. But this is very far Eastern Europe. It's very different from the standard like Western mythology that we get with like fairies and vampires and werewolves. And are werewolves even a thing anymore? Like, I know you still see vampires from time to time, but it's mostly just fairies that you see and stuff now. But anyway, this is like bear magic and nature magic, and it has a very different twist on it. And the book actually opens with the children's nursemaid like telling them old myths, and those are the myths that actually end up like being true and coming to life and like impacting the story. So I really enjoyed it. There's a lot of character development. It was really interesting. It's just slow. And I don't do super well with that. I do like character development, but I prefer it in series form. So there's only like little bits per book, and then there's a lot more action in each book. And this is a series; it's a trilogy, but the main character, the book starts literally before she's born. So the trilogy follows her through all growing up. I want to say she's only like 14 when this book ends. So there's not only like character development of just like her personality being revealed, but there's character development of her actually growing up. And I found the book way more interesting when she actually became a teenager and started like seeing the creatures in the woods and stuff. But when she's younger, it was well done. It's just super not my thing. So I'm glad I just stuck with it because I really enjoyed it. But I'm much more looking forward to the next two. I just haven't gotten them because I've been reading other things. But yeah, so that was The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden. Again, I gave it 4 stars. The next book was The Life of Captain Marvel. And this is the first graphic novel I've ever read that's legitimately like a Marvel comic book. I've read books that were told in graphic novel format, but never one that would traditionally be referred to as a comic book. So I was really interested because I saw the Captain Marvel movie a couple months ago, like when it came out, and I really, really enjoyed it a lot. So I was really excited to like get some backstory and see how her characters are handled in the comic, or character is handled in the comic books. And I was really, really disappointed. She had a completely different origin story in this. And I get that they like made up an origin story for the movie. That's fine. But apparently this is another like completely thrown out there origin story. It's not even like an expansion of one that has already existed. A lot of people I was reading through some Goodreads reviews, and people were like, why do you do this? She's already had so many reinventions. You just got a bunch of people who are fans of her now because they saw the movie, and you're going to be like, hey, everything you learned in the movie is wrong. This is actually how she became Captain Marvel, and you didn't even do it well. The story doesn't really make a lot of sense. It's just kind of all over the place. The main bad guy is like, I'm here for this reason, and they're like, not on my watch, and then she just owns them and leaves. Like, that's it. It's just, there was no defeating her. She just did her thing and left, and you're like, what? I didn't like the story, and I didn't like the villain, and I didn't like that they didn't actually defeat the villain in any way. And there's all this buildup, and the fight with the villain is like 1 page long, and it's just, I was like, where's the rest of it? Like, why? I did like the comic, like the actual drawing style. I wasn't sure, like I said, I've never read like a legitimate comic book, so I wasn't sure how I would like the art style, but I actually really liked it. I definitely prefer these pages to these pages, but yeah, so I gave it 2 stars. I originally gave it 3 stars because I was like, I guess it's all right, maybe. And then I was like, for a comic book, I guess. And then I read through some Goodreads reviews, and everybody was like, why did you do this to this great comic book series? And I was like, okay, so it wasn't just like, I don't need to give it latitude just because it's a comic book. Like, other people were upset who are actually comic book readers. So then I dropped it down to 2 stars. So there's a really long story for something you didn't need to know, but I gave it 2 stars is the sum of that. Okay, you guys are gonna laugh at me. The next book is a Dr. Seuss book. And it's a Dr. Seuss book that I had never heard of. It was written in 1986, so it's not new. I thought, was this something that was like he wrote before he died, and then they were cleaning out his attic and found or something? But it was published in 1986, so that's not the case. Like, it's legitimately a Dr. Seuss book that's been around forever, and I just didn't know about it. And it's called You're Only Old Once, and it is hilarious. It is a 56-page satire on getting old, and it was the best thing I read all month. Maybe not, but it was so good. It's hard to find. If you live in King County, the King County Library System has a handful of copies, so you can put it on hold and read it. You don't have to try and buy it. Yeah, it's kind of hard to find to buy, but I highly recommend it. It's going to be the best half hour of your week, I promise. So good. Yeah, so I'm totally counting that as a book read. My husband was like, really? You're putting a Dr. Seuss book on there? And I was like, people need to know. The people need to know. He was like, have you read Green Eggs and Ham? I was like, be quiet, you. That's enough from you. Thanks. Okay, so the next book. Oh, I did give that Dr. Seuss book 5 stars in case you were wondering. I mean, I feel like I didn't really leave you questioning that. But yeah, in case you were wondering, officially I gave it 5 stars. I cannot say the same for the next book, which is Before the Devil Breaks You by Libba Bray. This is the 3rd book in the Diviners series. I thought it was going to be a trilogy. I thought that I was going to be done after this one, but no, there's still another book coming out, and I don't know if that one's even supposed to be the last one. I just know there will be at least 4 books because there's still another one coming out. I read this one just because I was like, there's only one more. Finish the series off. You'll be done. Maybe it'll redeem itself. Spoiler alert, it did not. Things just got worse. The main character just got whinier and more obnoxious and less likable. And there was less stuff that actually happened. This one was mostly... Character development isn't really even the right term. It was interpersonal tiffs, I guess. And they were all like angsty, moody, teenagery, and I mean, not to be like, oh, someone who's a teenager can't have like real drama in their life, but the sort of contrived, I'm going to be mad at you just for no reason, seems to be weighted more towards the teenage years. And I just was like, this is literally all of the things I hate about YA stuffed into one 552 page book. It was just people being pissy with each other for 552 pages. I was like, ugh, and making terrible decisions because they couldn't be bothered to listen to the other people. And I really don't think I'm going to do the next book when it comes out, because I only did this one because I was like, after this, I'm done. I just have to finish this off. I just want to see where it's going. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to wait until the next one comes out, read spoilers, and be done with it. I've done that for a couple of other books where I'm like, I didn't enjoy reading this, but I still kind of want to know how it ends. So I just read through like a wiki summary, and I'm like, cool, saved me like a week of my life reading that book. I'm satisfied. Thanks. Yeah, so I kind of want to still know what ends up happening to everybody, but I don't want to actually torture myself with reading the book. And when I say reading, I mean doing the audiobook. Yeah, the audiobook itself, like not the text obviously, but the production of the audiobook still continues to be total quality. So if you are enjoying the other books, like I really enjoyed the first one, I did not enjoy the second one, and the third one was just horrible to get through for me, but I know I am absolutely in the minority there. But so if you enjoyed the second one, you're like, I kind of want to do the third one, I still recommend doing the audiobook because it is top notch. So that's my piece on that. Now everybody knows how I feel, even though I said basically the same thing with the last book. So the next book is one that I did on audiobook, and it may be the best audiobook production I've ever heard. It's so good. And that is Sadie by Courtney Summers. It came out last year in September of 2018, so it's not very old. It's still fairly new, and it was the book itself is very good, and the production value of the audiobook is just incredible. So the book is about this girl who is 19, I think. Her name's Sadie. The book opens up and her younger sister has been murdered and she's gone missing. not at the same time. Like, her younger sister was murdered several months ago or a year ago or something like that. And recently she's gone missing. And this guy who puts on a podcast, this journalist who does a professional podcast in New York, gets called out to investigate her disappearance. So the book is told from two perspectives. It's him investigating her disappearance and putting together podcasts, like episodes of podcasts. Is that the term? Podcast episodes? Because podcast is like the actual series. I'm not a podcaster, guys. I've listened to a few. I just can't get into them. Anyway, so he's putting together like a series on, he calls it The Girls. And then, so you're getting his investigation kind of working back to try and figure out what happened to Sadie. And then the other half of the book is told from Sadie's perspective, from when she leaves town to the end where she actually like goes missing. And the book itself was so well done. I will tell you, there are all kinds of triggers in this. So be warned, there is rape and murder and violence and underage drinking and excessive drug use and excessive like swearing, and there's just like, it is very heavy. It is extremely dark, but it is so good. It is so well done. It's not a very long book. It's 308 pages. I think the audiobook was like 7.5 or 8 hours long. Normally the audiobooks I listen to are like 25 to 30 hours. So this was super short. But afterwards I was like, I think we're going to do a comedy or something funny, because I just feel sad. Like, really sad. I'm going to say something that's a spoiler. Only sort of. I'm not going to actually tell you what happens, but I am going to warn you about something that's near the end of the book that's not going to actually tell you what happens, but if you don't want to know anything, skip ahead 10 seconds starting now. This is an open-ended book. You don't find out what happens to her. If that's going to bother you, don't read it. A lot of people were upset. I hope that took less than 10 seconds. So, anyway, I couldn't stop thinking about it, like, at all. For weeks afterwards, I'd just be sitting in my car driving home, and it would, like, pop into my head, and I would just be like, ah. So if those triggers are not going to be, I mean, I don't want to say not a problem, because they're a problem for everyone. Like, those are heavy topics. But if you're going to still be okay doing this book, you have to do the audiobook, because they legitimately made the podcasts. This has a full cast. There's like 30 people that are doing voices in this. So it's got a full cast. They actually made the podcast. Like, you can actually download and listen to the podcast, just the podcast part of it if you want. Like, it's out there. And it's just so well done. Like, he is interviewing people over the phone, and it sounds exactly like they're over the phone. You can hear like doors closing in the background. You can see, like, she's like, do you mind if I smoke? And he's like, no, it's fine. You can hear her like flicking her lighter. Like, it's just so immersive, and you feel like you're there, not just because the writing is so good, but the production of the audiobook is amazing. So I gave it 5 stars, but it's like 5 tortured stars. It's a really good book, but it's so heavy, and it talks about some really, really awful things. So definitely not for everybody, but if that is something you can handle, I highly recommend you check it out. Yeah. Okay, the next book, also very heavy. This is not in the order I read them, guys. I did not follow Sadie with Turtles All the Way Down, but here we are. This is just the order I wrote them down in. So I did the audiobook for Turtles All the Way Down, which, if you're not familiar, it's a book by John Green about, don't listen to the blurbs. I read the blurb and I was like, oh, that actually sounds super interesting. So the summary, the blurb about this book is like this eccentric billionaire goes missing after like embezzling or something to that effect, and a warrant, or not a warrant, but the company he embezzled from puts out a like reward, and people basically go on a treasure hunt trying to find him. That's the blurb on the book. That is what the catalyst for the story is, but that actually has nothing to do with the story of the book. The story of the book is about this teenage girl who has anxiety and OCD, and it is about her struggle with those and how she tries to just be a normal teenager and has to like fight her inner demons. And it's told from her perspective. She's the narrator, so you are inside her head listening to things spiral out of control. And John Green, actually, the author, actually suffers from both of these things, so it is a own voices book, and you can tell, like, this is written by someone who has gone through these things. It's supposed to be, like, vaguely autobiographical. That. I mean, I don't, obviously, like, the part about the billionaire or whatever wasn't real, and he's, like, I don't know how much of this is supposed to actually be stuff, specific things that he's gone through, but you can definitely tell, like, he's familiar with this struggle. And I thought that this book was really important because you see, you know, things like Monk on TV where, you know, some guy's got OCD and it just means he can't leave his house without, like, touching the light switch a bunch of times, or he can't, like, shake hands without Purell nearby or whatever. I don't know what just happened. The cats are freaking out, man. You know, you also have, like, Sheldon on The Big Bang Theory, or, what's the other one? Oh, Michael J. Fox's character on Scrubs. You know, you've got these people who, while that's not necessarily an inaccurate portrait, it's not a very complete portrait of what the people with these things are actually going through. And so to actually be in their head, kind of seeing how things build and progress and spiral, it gave me a new perspective and an appreciation for how anyone with suffering from these would function at all. Like, kudos to you. If this is something you are going through, I am truly amazed that you're here with us, participating at all in society. Like, I am so impressed. This book was not my favorite. I think I still gave it, I might have actually given it 5 stars. I did give it 5 stars because I just really appreciated the own voices aspect of showing the struggle with these mental health issues. But I wasn't super crazy about the writing of the actual characters. And I think that might partially be due to the fact that I did the audiobook and the narrator wasn't great. So I still gave the book 5 stars because I'm pretty sure my issue was more with the narrator being kind of choppy and, like, reading stuff, like pausing in awkward spots and that sort of thing, than actually thinking the book didn't flow very well. So if you're going to do this one, I don't recommend the audiobook. It's not a very long book. It's 288 pages. So actually physically reading it would not be much of a commitment. Okay, the next book, we have mentioned that I'm doing the 10 to Try challenge through King County Library System. And one of the categories is read a book of poetry, which I've never done before, except for I had to read poetry in high school for my English class. Literally all I remember from that is reading The Road Less Traveled by Robert Frost. And I liked that one. I know we read other things, and I remember being like, that poem was the only one that was tolerable. So I've like gone out of my way to avoid poetry. But I read For Everyone by Jason Reynolds. And it's kind of hard to tell, but every one is 2 different words. So the title is 3 words, For Everyone. And it's important because if you search like Goodreads or whatever, and you do for, and then you do everyone as 1 word, it won't come up. So this is a book that is literally for everyone, and it's kind of cool. You open up in the beginning and it's like from to, and then it's like pass it on. So you read the book and then you're supposed to pass it on to somebody else, which I thought was a really cool idea. And the whole premise of this book is it is about his struggle to follow his dreams and become like an artist, a professional artist. And he was like, I had a plan for myself. I was going to be famous and like rock in my field by the time I was 25. And then 25 came and went, and I was nowhere near meeting my dreams. And so I thought about selling out and just giving up. And then I looked at all these people who had done that and how unhappy they were. And then I realized that's not for me. And it's like 4 different parts. And he talks about, it's like his struggle, his deciding to continue to persevere. And then it was like, part 3 is like, don't give up on yourself. And then part 4 is like, part 4 is dreamer. And, he talks about everybody's dream is different. And he's like, you don't have to be a professional artist to follow your dreams. Maybe your dream is to work in an office so that you can have weekends with your kids and, go to school events and that sort of thing. If that's your dream, fantastic. I'm not knocking people who live or who work in office spaces. I'm just saying, if that was the last thing you wanted to do and you had this dream and you now are working in an office job, like, that's not great. And so to give you an idea, it's a very tiny book. This is what the pages look like. There's a lot of just like few words. I read this entire book in 15 minutes. So it is definitely something you can read and pass on. Or you can get it from your library if you don't want to spend $15 on something that will take you 15 minutes to read. But I really enjoyed it way more than I thought I was going to. I felt encouraged, and I am actually currently doing what my dream was, and that is to work in a library. And it took me a really, really, really long time. From the time, it was like 2 years of considering going back to school, and then 3 years of actually going to school, and then 1.5 years of applying for a job after graduating school. And even now I have an entry-level job. So after, what is that, like 8 years or something? 6, I'm not counting it, but after many years, I'm finally here, just getting my foot in the door. And so I definitely appreciate the idea of like, don't give up on your dream. So anyway, I really appreciated the idea of like, figure out what you want to do and make it happen. I did give it 3 stars just because poetry's still not my thing. And I was like, where's the rest of it? Because again, like 15 minutes to read it. It literally took me longer to read the Dr. Seuss book. No joke. Some of those rhymes, man, you have to read through a couple times because you're like, wait, what? But yeah, I enjoyed it. I am going to pass it on to someone else by returning it to my library and letting someone else check it out. All right, we are almost done, guys. We've got 2 more books, 2 more. The next one is up here. I should have done the other side because that's where I went first, but I'm committed now. It is Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe by Benjamin Allaire Sainz. I think that's how you say it. I'm not sure. And if I mess it up, I apologize. I watched so many videos where he's mentioned and I'm like, how do they say it? So yeah, that's my best guess. My best approximation of what I've heard other people say. This is another one for the 10 to try challenge, and one of the tiles, one of the categories is a book by an LGBTQ author, and Benjamin Sainz is an LGBTQ author. My tongue's all like upset now after trying to say his name so many times. I expected to really love this book because I have heard nothing but just incredible praise for this book. I mean, it is like the go-to for like coming of age books and, so many people have talked about it and just said it's one of their favorite books of all time. It's so good. They love the romance. And I just could not get into it at all. And I think part of the problem is I did it on audiobook, and the narrator, there's not a single sentence in there that's longer than like 10 words. And the narrator like leaves a pause at the end of every sentence. So you're just like, what? Why are you doing this? And it's like, Dante hates shoes. Dante went outside and took his shoes off. Dante left his shoes on the porch. Then he went into the yard. Now Dante is in the yard without his shoes on. And I'm like, oh no, you could have just said this all together. Like, Dante really doesn't like his shoes. He went outside and left them on the porch. He's now in the yard without his shoes on. Instead, it was like every sentence was this standalone declarative statement, and it just had no flow. So there's that, which I feel like definitely part of that is on the narrator, but I feel also like it's choppy writing as well. It's just accentuated by the narrator. So I really didn't like that. And I just could not connect with either of the characters at all. They didn't seem like real people to me in any way. And the stuff that the main character, so it's all told from Aristotle's perspective. And so it's him talking about like meeting Dante and his experience. So Dante's in it, but the main character is definitely Aristotle. And the stuff that he chose to be super angry about, he's like an angry, combative character. I just was like, why are you angry about this? I don't that it would never in a million years be my reaction. I mean, some stuff, like, there were times where he was bullied and that sort of thing. Like, yes, I get upset, or I understand getting upset and being angry and, like, fighting back for that. But there were so many times where it was just, like, his mom being like, hey, come back in time for dinner. And he was like, it filled me with rage. And you're like, why? This is just normal stuff. Like, I don't understand. And Dante was, like, super artistic and poetic and, like, very right-brained, and his entire worldview was informed by his like right-brained poetic nature, and I am not that way at all. So I just could not connect with either of the characters. And I was just like, I'm doing it on audiobook, so I can see how long is left. So I'm like watching the countdown. Like if it hadn't been on my list of stuff for the reading challenge, I would not have finished it. I gave it 2 stars. I just did not enjoy it, and I feel bad. I feel like, I know this is like this huge beloved book that so many people just absolutely, it's like the tentpole of their collection. I just did not enjoy it. And I think maybe part of the reason is because I read it as a 35-year-old adult. If I had read this as a teenager when I was going through that sort of thing, I might have been able to identify more with these characters and might have been more appreciative of their reactions to things. But as a 35-year-old, I was like, why are you being super dramatic about literally nothing? So, yeah, it just really wasn't my thing. So the last one is kind of a random one. I had mentioned in a previous video, I don't remember which one, but I had mentioned in a previous video that I wanted to start reading more graphic novels because the list of graphic novels I had read before this current, recent reads video was like 3. So I wasn't sure how to even review them because I was like, they're kind of their own thing. And so right after I said that, like within a few days of me saying that, I was at work, was looking at our homepage because I was sitting at the desk, and there was a blog post that some librarians did through KCLS about like the top current graphic novels or something to that effect. And I was like, perfect. And so I downloaded one through Hoopla, which, if you're not familiar, is the online app that, well, it's on your phone, on your, whatever device, but it's also online. It's the app that we use through KCLS for graphic novels. So I found one that was on there and downloaded it, and it is originally written in French. The author is French, and so this was a translation, but it's To Eat and to Drink by Guillaume Long. And it was really fun. I gave it 3 stars because some of it, whatever, which is not really my thing. But he apparently is an author for, I'm not familiar with it, but I want to say it's some like culinary magazine in France, it sounds like, from the context. And while he's not a chef himself, he is very much a foodie, like a food critic sort of a deal. And so it's short stories on like his experiences that he's had, and him talking about like different ingredients, and he does a bunch of recipes, and he talks about like kitchen equipment. I'm not making this sound very interesting, but he does it in a really fun way. He's got a good sense of humor. He makes fun of himself, which I appreciate. And I just, it was a thing that I just read at the desk when it was slow, and I really, I gave it 3 stars. It, like, I was like, should I buy this? Because there's quite a few recipes in here that I want to do. And I was like, I can check it out from the library and get it on my phone like whenever I want to. I don't think I actually need to buy this to get these recipes. But I was like, there's some really good recipes in here. So it was really fun. It was a fun read. It was kind of random. I mean, like a culinary comic book was not at the top of my list to read this month, but there you go. All right, guys, that is everything I have recently read. If you've watched both of the videos, then it really is everything I've recently read. I hope you enjoyed this. I'm sorry it's been such a long time, and I'm sorry these videos are going to be so long because I had so many books to tell you about, but hopefully we'll get back into a more regular schedule, and these will be a little bit shorter because there will be more of them coming more frequently with a decent amount of books. All right, guys, until next time, happy reading. Make sure to give this video that thumbs up. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe before you leave. Bye. Excuse me, it's allergy season. And everything itches. All of the things. So there's no, I will try and minimize the touching and the sniffling, but there's only so much I can do. Because the audiobook, oh my gosh, that startled me. I thought something was falling on my head. My poor Harry Potter. I've had to tape all of these down because for whatever reason, whatever these guys are, these pop people, can't design something that actually stands up. Like, none of them will stand up on their own. None of them that I have. I have some that are glued to the top of my monitor, and these guys are taped down, but the tape has like lost its sticky, so we're just gonna do the rest of the video with him a little drunk in the corner. It's fine. Whatever it looks like. Sorry, I've got a hair in my mouth, and that's the grossest thing ever. I put lip gloss on over my lipstick, and so now everything floating around in the air is just sticking to my mouth. Lovely, right? Lovely.